I want you to just take a second and imagine waking up tomorrow, right? And you discover your entire town is just completely paralyzed.
Oh, like total gridlock.
Exactly. You go to an intersection and the traffic lights are totally dark. You try to call the local police station and their computers are just completely frozen.
Right. The municipal payroll is locked, meaning literally no one is getting paid.
Yeah, the entire city infrastructure is just trapped behind this massive digital ransom demand.
Which is, honestly, it's the ultimate modern vulnerability. We build these incredibly complex, interconnected lives, and we just assume the invisible digital scaffolding holding it all up is secure.
Just take it for granted, yeah.
We really do. And when someone on the other side of the world decides to pull the plug, you realize just how fragile that scaffolding actually is.
And that digital abstraction is terrifying on its own. But imagine taking that massive, invisible cyber warfare crisis and dropping it straight into the path of a giant, off-the-grid drifter. A guy who doesn't even own a cell phone, who has zero digital footprint, and who, frankly, solves problems exclusively through brutal, old-school physics.
It creates this completely fascinating friction. You have highly sophisticated, state-sponsored cyber tactics colliding head-on with, like, boots on the ground, analog survival.
It's wild. So, welcome to our deep dive into the source material today. We are unpacking excerpts from the thriller The Sentinel by Lee Child and Andrew Child.
They're great.
It really is. And our mission today is to explore exactly what happens when the digital world crashes into the physical one. To understand that collision, we have to look at the two radically different protagonists who sort of wander into this mess.
Let's start with Rusty Rutherford.
Yeah, poor Rusty. He's the town's recently fired IT manager.
He is also the town's designated scapegoat. I mean, everyone blames him for the entire municipal network crashing.
And how does he handle it? He spends a week hiding in his apartment with the blinds drawn,
Right.
surviving on a massive stockpile of frozen pizza and playing violent video games just to numb his brain.
Yeah, he's totally convinced he's an innocent victim of a technical glitch.
Which is a whole mood.
Yeah.
But when he finally forced himself to leave his apartment, he puts on a pair of clean chinos and this polo shirt with a corporate logo on it.
Just to show the world he still means business.
Exactly. And he heads out to get a cup of coffee.
But he is walking out the door with severe tunnel vision. He is so consumed by his digital failure and, his social anxiety that he is entirely oblivious to his physical surroundings. He is the very definition of a soft target.
Meanwhile, 75 miles away in this dark, windowless dive bar in Nashville, we have Jack Reacher.
The ultimate hard target.
The ultimate. He's this towering guy with no luggage, no permanent address. He's stepped into this bar to deal with a club owner named Lockhart, who refused to pay a local band.
And then actually stole the guitar player's instrument.
Yeah, which is just low.
Well, the method Lockhart used to steal that guitar tells you everything about the predatory environment Reacher is used to navigating. Lockhart had his massive bouncer pin the guitarist's hand onto a desk. Yeah, and Lockhart pulled out a hammer and informed the kid he was going to break his fingers one by one unless the band walked away without their $200 performance fee.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Reacher's counter move here is just a masterclass in applied physics and psychological dominance.
He doesn't negotiate at all.
Not even a little bit. He waits for the cash count, breaks into Lockhart's office, and when that same bouncer attacks, Reacher instantly crushes the guy's windpipe with a metal plate. He neutralizes the physical threat in 1 second.
And then he turns to the club owner and literally does the math for him.
It's amazing.
It's an incredibly cold calculation. He says, okay, 5 fingers on a guitar player's hand multiplied by $200 a finger equals $1,000.
Wow.
Right. He essentially itemizes the physical threat Lockhart made and converts it into a financial penalty.
He makes the owner hand over the $1,000 plus late fees, plus the cost of the stolen guitar. But the incentive program Reacher leaves behind is what really sticks with you.
Well, the ceiling.
Yes. He tells Lockhart that if he ever rips off another musician, Reacher will come back, break his arms and legs, and hang his underwear from the ceiling of the bar while the guy is still wearing it.
Which is such an absurd visual.
Totally absurd, but it's terrifyingly specific, because this particular dive bar already has hundreds of bras hanging from the ceiling as a gimmick.
See, Reacher is weaponizing the physical environment. He sees the ceiling, he sees the threat, and he engineers a consequence that Lockhart will visualize every single time he looks up.
It perfectly establishes how Reacher operates. He uses extreme physical awareness to solve problems. And he's going to need every ounce of that awareness when he hitches a ride out of Nashville with an insurance negotiator and gets dropped off on the sun-baked main street of Rusty Rutherford's town.
Right, so imagine you're walking down this sleeky Tennessee street. Reacher is just looking for a decent cup of black coffee.
And Rusty is walking out of a coffee shop nearby, holding a cup, completely lost in his own bubble of misery because literally the entire town is glaring at him.
Yeah, Rusty has no idea he is walking straight into a trap, but Reacher's hardwired warning system kicks in instantly.
How does he even spot it?
Well, Reacher identifies these subtle deviations in the environment. He isn't just looking at individuals, he is looking at the geometry of the street. He sees a pattern forming. It's like predators circling prey.
Right, he spots 4 operatives, a guy at the west end of the block, another near an alley on the east end, and this redheaded woman named Natasha positioned across the street. And Reacher calculates that they are forming a moving envelope around Rusty.
Yeah, and it starts at like 130 feet out.
That's so specific.
And Reacher notices they're communicating with earpieces. These aren't just local thugs looking to mug someone. As the envelope shrinks down from 130 feet to 100 feet and then to 80 feet, a dark blue hybrid Toyota rolls silently out of the alley.
It's completely coordinated.
Exactly. This is a highly choreographed, rigid operational script. That level of precision indicates military or state-sponsored training.
So the envelope shrinks down to 40 feet. The Toyota is gliding perfectly into position. The guy on the west end reaches out to grab Rusty's elbow to shove him into the back seat. The entire kidnapping is designed to take less than 5 seconds.
And that's when Reacher intervenes. He exploits the one vulnerability a highly trained team actually has, their total reliance on their script.
Okay, I have a hard time buying this part, I'll be honest.
Really? Why?
You're telling me we have an elite state-sponsored hit squad and a guy who just drank diner coffee completely dismantles their operation in 5 seconds. How does that actually work in reality?
It works because of the concept of the 0-foot envelope.
The what?
The 0-foot envelope. Think of an elite tactical team, like a classical symphony orchestra. They have supreme technical skills, right? And they execute incredibly complex maneuvers, but they are entirely dependent on their sheet music. They know exactly where everyone is supposed to be at exactly what second.
Okay, so what happens when you take away the sheet music?
They stall. If you force a classical orchestra to suddenly play improvisational jazz, their brains experience a cognitive glitch. They have to mentally recalculate, which costs them fractions of a second. Reacher doesn't try to fight them at a distance. He steps directly into the space right beside the attacker. 0 feet. He forces them to improvise.
That makes perfect sense. By stepping into that 0-foot space, he takes away their reaction time. He grabs Rusty, shoves the first attacker so hard into a brick wall that the guy's nervous system just shorts out and he drops like a puppet with cut strings.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And then Reacher literally launches the second attacker head first through the open window of the moving Toyota, pinning the guy's arms inside the car.
He weaponizes their own momentum and their own vehicle against them. He completely controls the physics of the space, forcing the hit squad to abort their mission and flee.
So he physically saves Rusty. But then the local cops show up with guns drawn, completely misread the situation, and Reacher just allows himself to be arrested.
Which takes us from the physical chaos of the street directly into the digital paralysis of the town.
Right, because Reacher ends up sitting on the floor of a soundproof interrogation room at the police station.
He sits there for exactly 97 minutes, which is a duration he happily notes is his favorite 2-digit prime number.
That is such a Reacher detail.
It really is. But that isolation gives him time to observe the absolute operational failure of the local government.
Yeah, he notices the cops are walking around communicating on their personal cell phones. The computers on the booking desks are entirely powered down. The security monitors are black. He looks out the window and sees the traffic lights are still broken.
He realizes the municipal infrastructure hasn't just glitched, it has been completely neutralized. When Reacher finally gets to talk to the local detective and later to Rusty himself, the reality of the situation sets in. The town is the victim of a devastating ransomware attack.
And Rusty actually saw this coming. Before he was fired, he tried to build a custom defense system called Cerberus with the help of a friend who used to work for the FBI. But Cerberus failed. The hackers got in anyway.
What's fascinating here is how ransomware actually cripples a municipality. Think of a town's computer network like a master key ring that unlocks every single door in a massive office building.
Yep.
A ransomware virus doesn't just steal the keys. It sneaks in, changes the locks on every single door simultaneously, and then throws the new master key into a cryptographic black hole. The hackers hold the only copy of that key, and they demand a ransom to give it back.
And small towns are incredibly soft targets for this, right?
Yeah.
They don't have the massive cybersecurity budgets of multinational corporations. Their IT infrastructure is usually this patchwork of outdated systems, salvaged together over decades. They're basically bringing a wooden shield to a drone fight.
Exactly. When state-sponsored hackers hit a town like this, the local government is faced with a brutal mathematical choice. Do they spend months and millions of dollars wiping every single hard drive, buying new equipment, and rebuilding their entire infrastructure from scratch?
Which takes forever.
Right. Or do they quietly pay the hackers a few $1,000,000 in untraceable Bitcoin to get the decryption key and make the nightmare just go away?
And the sources indicate an insurance company is already secretly in town negotiating that massive Bitcoin payout.
Yeah.
But this scenario raises a massive red flag for Reacher. It just doesn't add up.
It really doesn't.
If this is a digital extortion plot executed by some faceless hacker thousands of miles away, why is a highly trained hit squad physically trying to kidnap the fired IT guy off the street?
There is a severe disconnect between the digital crime and the real-world violence. Ransomware attackers hide behind encryption and proxy servers. They do not send boots on the ground to abduct local bureaucrats in broad daylight.
No, they don't. And the physical violence escalates very quickly, and it gets incredibly confusing. After Reacher is released from the police station, he takes Rusty to a 1950s-style diner to figure out what he knows. But when they walk out of the diner, Reacher is ambushed again.
Only this time, it is not an elite tactical squad. It's 3 local, heavily bearded mechanics wearing greasy coveralls.
Right. Reacher dispatches them with brutal efficiency. He essentially uses one skinny attacker's head like a cue ball to violently knock out a much larger attacker.
Yeah.
But from an investigative standpoint, their presence makes absolutely no sense.
None at all.
The mechanics attacked Reacher because they mistakenly thought he was the insurance negotiator sent to pay the ransom. So here's the question. Why on earth would locals want to stop the insurance company from fixing the computers?
Yeah.
Everyone in town is suffering. Everyone wants the traffic lights back on and the payroll processed.
Well, Reacher traces the ambush back to its source and uncovers a phenomenon that intelligence analysts actually call local noise.
Local noise.
Yeah. He realizes a waitress at the diner named Holly tipped off the local thugs. He confronts her and discovers her motive. Holly is trying to protect her violently abusive boyfriend. The boyfriend has an active warrant out for his arrest in another jurisdiction.
Oh, and because the police computers are down, the local cops can't run his name?
Exactly. The down network is literally the only thing keeping this abusive boyfriend out of a jail cell.
That is incredibly messed up.
But think about what happens when any major system fails, a power grid goes down, or a supply chain collapses. The primary crisis is bad enough, but the secondary effects, the local noise, often create far more immediate and unpredictable chaos. People exploit the vacuum of authority for their own hyper-localized self-interests.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. While Reacher is managing that local noise, the true threat is operating deep in the shadows. The sources introduce us to the real conspiracy, orchestrated by this terrifying figure named Speranski, who operates out of a highly secure facility referred to simply as the Center.
Speranski is not a local mechanic or some digital hacker. He is a deeply embedded, old-school operative. The kind of person who uses terror as a blunt instrument.
Yeah, we learn about Speranski's designated underground generator room. It's soundproofed and used specifically for torture. The sources detail how a journalist who had been asking uncomfortable questions about the town was abducted, kept alive in that generator room for days, and eventually dismembered and disposed of in suitcases.
It completely shatters the illusion that this is just a white-collar digital crime. The people pulling the strings are absolutely ruthless, and they deal in physical destruction.
And we see that psychological terror weaponized against a character named Marty. Marty is a corrupt ex-cop who Speranski is blackmailing into acting as a local asset. Marty tries to ignore a phone call from Speranski, and in response, Speranski has 2 numbered boxes delivered to Marty's front porch.
This part is so dark.
It is. Box number 1 contains severed human genitals. Box number 2 contains a simple note warning Marty to answer the phone, or he ends up in the box.
It induces pure, paralyzing terror, and Speranski uses that terror to force Marty to intercept Reacher. Marty uses his old police connections to, quote-unquote, escort Reacher out of town, but his actual orders are to drive Reacher to an abandoned Studebaker gas station for a lethal ambush.
So Reacher finds himself riding shotgun in a moving car with a terrified, compromised ex-cop driving him straight into a death trap. Reacher realizes he can't wait for the ambush. He has to seize control of the situation using the physics of survival.
Reacher observes his environment and notices a single critical detail. Marty is driving, but he isn't wearing his seatbelt.
Reacher calmly leans over, unbuckles Marty's seatbelt to ensure it's completely disengaged, pins the strap down, and grabs Marty by the throat. I mean, imagine you're driving that car. Reacher sits there and calmly explains the physics of inertia to you.
He breaks down the biological mechanics of forward momentum. He says, look, if the car crashes, or even if Reacher just stomps his foot on the brake pedal, the vehicle stops. But Marty's unbelted body will continue moving forward at 40 miles an hour.
The only thing arresting Marty's forward momentum is Reacher's grip on his neck. Reacher explains that it isn't just his windpipe that will be crushed. The sheer force of a 200-pound body moving at 40 miles an hour against a fixed grip will instantly snap the cervical spine and sever the spinal column.
And Marty surrenders his gun and his own handcuffs immediately.
I mean, wouldn't you? So Reacher leaves Marty handcuffed to a pipe at the abandoned gas station, steals his car, and races back to town to secure Rusty. Reacher realizes that Rusty's absolute cluelessness is actually his biggest asset. Rusty doesn't know what the hit squad wants, which means the hit squad can't kill him until they extract that information.
They need a secure location to figure out what that information actually is. So Rusty leads Reacher to a neighbor's empty apartment, and the visual contrast of this hideout is just striking. They step out of a gritty world of dive bars and greasy diners into this hyper-modern, minimalist concrete space.
The neighbor has a massive aluminum egg that was originally manufactured in a German factory to test industrial light bulbs. The guy hollowed it out and uses it as a high-end whiskey cabinet. He has 100-year-old bonsai trees from Mount Fuji sitting on floating shelves. It is a sterile, perfectly controlled environment.
But the clock is ticking. Reacher had previously taped up the building's corrupt doorman and taken control of the security camera feeds. He watches as the elite hit squad infiltrates the underground parking garage. But they don't ambush Rusty's off-white VW Beetle. They plant a sophisticated tracking device inside the rear fender.
They're playing the long game here.
They assume Rusty is going to lead them directly to the asset they are hunting for. This forces Reacher to sit Rusty down and ruthlessly interrogate his memory. Rusty swears he hasn't stolen any state secrets or embezzled any money.
So Reacher pushes him to remember any anomaly, any strange request at work before the system crashed. And finally, Rusty remembers the murdered journalist. Shortly before she was killed, she had emailed Rusty with a very specific technical question.
Right. A physical warehouse storing all of the town's historical paper archives documents dating all the way back to the Civil War had recently burned to the ground.
But the town had just finished a massive, multi-year project to digitize all those public documents. The journalist wanted to know if there was any way to access the digitized 1940s property records now that the network was locked by the ransomware.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire conspiracy just crystallizes. The ransomware attack was never the end game.
It was a massive smokescreen.
Exactly. The attackers didn't lock down an entire municipal infrastructure just to squeeze a few $1 million in Bitcoin out of the local government. They orchestrated a citywide blackout specifically to freeze access to a handful of digitized 1940s property records. They burned down the physical warehouse to destroy the paper, and they launched a state-sponsored cyber attack to lock away the digital backups.
So what does this all mean for Rusty? Why are they trying to kidnap the IT guy?
Because as the architect of the town's network, they believe Rusty is the ultimate loose end. They think he either made a secret physical backup of those property records on an external hard drive, or he possesses a backdoor key that can bypass the ransomware and unlock the database. They literally paralyzed a city to bury a historical secret, and Rusty is the only person who might accidentally dig it up.
And just as Reacher sits Rusty down to trace his every single footstep over the past week, trying to figure out where this missing clue might be hiding before the hit squad moves and the phone on the glass coffee table suddenly buzzes. It's the doorman Reacher had taped up in the closet downstairs.
He managed to hit the speakerphone with his nose.
He tells Reacher that a furious unknown woman just shoved her way past the front desk in the lobby, and she's currently riding the elevator up to their exact floor.
A locked room confrontation is literally seconds away. It leaves us right on the edge of the collision between the digital conspiracy and brutal physical reality.
Such a tense moment.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it forces you to consider a deeply uncomfortable reality about how we store truth. We just analyzed the scenario where an entire town was paralyzed and people were literally murdered just to control access to old property records.
Yeah.
In an era where our entire lives, our financial histories, our municipal data, our identities are digitized and vulnerable to a single malicious click or a ransomware blackout, are we willingly destroying the physical paper trails that actually prove who we are and who owns what?
Makes you look around your own home, honestly.
Yeah.
What hidden, forgotten piece of knowledge, what old external hard drive or physical paper record are you holding right now that someone else might consider incredibly valuable? Because when the invisible digital scaffolding collapses and the network freezes up, well, you might just need a little old school physics to survive.